All right, let's jump right into one of the most fascinating puzzles in biblical prophecy. We're talking about a numerical mystery tucked away in the books of Daniel and Revelation that people have been trying to crack for centuries.
So here's the core of the mystery. These ancient prophecies seem to give us three totally different timelines: 1,260 days, 1,290 days, and 1,335 days. And they all seem to be talking about the same period. So what gives? How can all three of them be correct? Well, let's figure it out.
So, let's just lay it out. You look at the book of Revelation, and it pretty consistently talks about a period of 1,260 days. But then you flip over to the book of Daniel, and suddenly there are two different numbers, 1,290 and 1,335. Now, at first glance, that feels like a major contradiction, right? But what if it's not? What if it's more like a code we just need to decipher?
To make any sense of these numbers, we have to start with the big picture. We need a framework, a foundation that holds it all together. And for that, we're actually going to turn right back to the book of Daniel.
This verse right here, this is the absolute key. It talks about a period of 1-7, which many scholars believe means a 7-year period. But here's the really crucial part. This 7-year block of time gets split exactly in half by a massive world-changing event. So here's what that looks like. It all kicks off with a peace treaty. But then, right on the dot, at the 3.5-year mark, that treaty gets broken, and everything just completely changes. This exact midpoint is absolutely critical to understanding all the numbers that come next.
Okay, before we do any math, we've got to get on the same page about our terms. See, in biblical prophecy, a year isn't always 365 days. We're talking about a prophetic year, which is calculated as a neat and tidy 360 days. Think of it as 12 months of 30 days each. This is the calculator we're going to be using.
And this is how we get our first number. You take half of that 7-year period, so 3.5 years, and you multiply it by 360 days. What do you get? Exactly 1,260 days. This means each half of that final 7-year period is 1,260 days long. This number is our starting point, our foundation.
All right, now let's zoom in and focus specifically on the second half of that 7-year period, because this is where all the action happens. This is where our three mystery numbers, the 1,260, the 1,290, and the 1,335, all come into play. So that 1,260-day countdown officially begins with that midpoint event, the abomination of desolation. This is interpreted as a huge act of sacrilege in the Holy Temple by the figure known as the Antichrist. The clock starts there, and it stops 1,260 days later with his defeat at the Battle of Armageddon.
Okay, so if the main conflict ends after 1,260 days, what about the other numbers from Daniel? This is where we solve the rest of the puzzle. It's actually all about accounting for the extra days.
I mean, this is the logical question, isn't it? The book of Daniel is very clear about a 1,290-day period starting from that same event. So what in the world is happening in that 30-day gap after the tribulation is supposedly over?
The math itself is pretty simple. You take our base number, 1,260 days, and you just add an extra 30. That brings us right to Daniel's first number, 1,290.
So what are those 30 days for? Well, there are different ideas out there, but a really common interpretation is that this is a transitional period. It's for cleanup and restoration, specifically for the physical rebuilding of Israel after the incredible devastation of the tribulation.
We are almost there, I promise. We've explained the 1,260 and the 1,290, but Daniel gives us one more number to account for, 1,335. So what could possibly happen in that final 45-day stretch?
You guessed it, we take our new total, 1,290 days, and we add another 45, and that lands us exactly on the final destination mentioned in the book of Daniel, 1,335 days.
And this last chunk of time is thought to be for judgment. This is when many believe the judgment of the sheep and the goats from the book of Matthew takes place. It's a time to sort things out and determine which survivors of the tribulation get to enter the new millennial kingdom, that prophesied 1,000-year reign of peace.
Okay, so now for the big reveal. Let's put all the pieces together and look at the complete, unified timeline. You're about to see how these three numbers that seem to contradict each other actually work together in a perfect sequence.
So here's the entire flow of events. Day 0, the countdown starts. Day 1,260, the main conflict ends.
30 days later, on day 1290, the initial restoration is finished. 45 days after that, on day 1335, the judgment is over. And immediately after that, the promised millennial kingdom begins. You see, it wasn't 3 different timelines after all, but 3 key milestones on the exact same timeline.
And that brings us to this powerful final verse from Daniel. Why is the person who reaches this final day blessed? Well, according to this whole interpretation, it's because they have survived the tribulation, they have passed through the judgment, and now they are standing on the very doorstep of the promised kingdom. It's a truly fascinating conclusion to this prophetic puzzle, and it leaves you just wondering about all the weight and meaning packed into these ancient numbers.